All right. Hey, good morning, folks. Once again, we are back taking a look at the tropics. Today is Monday, August 5th, 2024. We are covering the landfall of Hurricane Debby along the Big Bend region of Florida. We have a landfall. The storm is over land, and very heavy rain and strong winds are lashing parts of northern Florida, with those rain bands beginning to spread into parts of Georgia and the Carolinas, where a major flood event is forecast throughout most of this week. Hurricane Debby will become Tropical Storm Debby this afternoon, but her impacts will reach far through the southeast U.S. for the next several days to come. So let's go ahead and go to the National Hurricane Center. As of 7 a.m. Eastern Time, Hurricane Debby made landfall at the near the Big Bend of Florida in the Steinhatchee area. Maximum sustained winds were estimated to be 80 miles an hour, and the central pressure fell to 979 millibars, which overall pretty good forecast, right about what we are expecting. Debby showed some signs of rapid intensification cycles wanting to start during the day yesterday and even into last night, but the storm never fully got going in that regard, and although it definitely got strong, it came in pretty much as expected. So good news there that it didn't really run away from any expectations. But again, that eye over land this morning. This is the Hurricane Center's 8 a.m. advisory. The winds are now down to 75 miles an hour, and those will continue to drop as the storm moves over land. Right now, the movement's to the north-northeast at 10 miles an hour, but a decrease in forward speed is expected throughout the day as it comes to a crawl and virtually stops off the coast of Georgia and South Carolina going into this week. Debby will be blocked by a high pressure building into the north for the next couple of days. A ridge will build in north of the storm, and it will keep the storm meandering near the U.S. Southeast coastline for the next several days to come. Let's look at some of the live conditions right now across northern Florida. Again, we can see the eye of Debby moving ashore, becoming ragged and cloud-filled. It was open for a brief period, so some people actually got a full eye with this system. The heavier rain bands definitely are spreading into northern Florida and also into southern Georgia today, and probably into South Carolina as well. Northeast Florida region definitely getting a lot of heavy rain at this hour and pretty frequent wind gusts. That will continue, and again, as the core of Debby, which is this kind of region here, this is where those strongest winds are, and this will pretty much work something like this. So it'll bend sort of around the Jacksonville area, and although it will not come directly over Jacksonville, you can see with the trajectory being something like this, that core of stronger winds. The brighter colors you see kind of in the radar right here are those real strong wind gusts. So we'll see how close they get, but they should just scrape by the area. So again, what we talked about our local forecast discussions, Nassau, Baker, if you were kind of west of Clay County, west of 301, you had the potential to really see those strong wind gusts. That's where those, 55, 65, 70s are lurking in a sustained fashion. But even across Jacksonville, we can look at some of the regional updates here this morning. And overall, I mean, the forecasts are holding fairly well. Gainesville gusting 35 miles an hour, Palatka gusting 45, Mayport gusting 39, Jacksonville International and NAS taking the cake with both recording wind gusts over 50 miles an hour. Those will definitely happen, especially in those sites that are a little more open and a little more susceptible to higher winds. But Cecil Field recording 30 miles an hour this morning, far cry from their erroneous 3,000 mile an hour reading earlier. And Fernandina Beach in the 30s as well. So that's kind of holding in what we thought the forecast would be. Heavy rain likely already fallen. We'll have to get those totals for you later on, but definitely something that's going on. So again, watching how this plays out, we'll use the NamNest high resolution model. We'll step you through. You can see that core of stronger winds and rain bands continues to push through even into Monday evening. Storm is still pushing through, and we get into the early morning hours. This is midnight tonight. We can see by midnight, it looks like some of those bands are going to want to lift, and the core of heavier wind and rain may shift more into Georgia and South Carolina. So if you're in the Northeast Florida area, I mean, you're pretty much going to be in it throughout the rest of the afternoon, but given some of the computer model guidance, it looks like sometime around late tonight, styrated to some degree by where you're located. If you're more down towards Flagler or southern St. John's, it might be sooner. If you're more up towards Baker or Nassau, it may be later. But it looks like sometime late this evening, you will start seeing more breaks in the rain, and then the rain will become more infrequent. But I want to point out that as Debby begins to spin away and moves up into Georgia and offshore, there's still going to be periods where heavy rain still pushes into the Jacksonville area. Now, there's dry air wrapping around the storm. and that will that will show a definite break. Now, this model is just a model. I'm not saying this is exactly where the rain will set up, but the illustration is that you will still see these lingering tails of severe weather that will be more hybrid in nature. You'll probably see some actual thunderstorms with like thunder and lightning in them as it moves through Tuesday and Wednesday, but then you'll have these pulses of more tropical rainfall, but then you'll have long breaks where it won't be that bad, and you'll have that drier air over your head, so you'll have a lot less rain or no rain at all. And it will still be pretty windy even into Tuesday and Wednesday, although the bulk of the strongest winds are pretty much as this thicker part passes throughout the day on Monday. So hopefully that kind of gives you an idea. Most of the stuff from the National Weather Service still on tap here. A lot of river flooding is going to come. Remember, our rivers flood well after the rainfall falls, and then all the water that falls up here, some of that will try to get out of the rivers to the south as well. So definitely a lot of river flooding to come, and please respect that. That can happen days after the storm. Even when the sun's out and it looks good, rivers can flood well after events. Rainfall total still to come, 10 to 15 inches inland of northern Florida and southern Georgia, generally 6 to 8 inches for a lot of Jacksonville, and then 4 to 6 for the more southern and eastern counties who will be in that heavy rain shield less time than folks to the north. So let's go ahead and talk about, again, the future of Debby after Florida. So this moves offshore, according to the European model, sometime Tuesday afternoon and meanders through Tuesday evening. And we can see the setup here, just brutal rainfall totals coming in for parts of Georgia and the Carolinas. I mean, just staggering rainfall rates. If you're in this region between Savannah and Charleston, like in the Beaufort area, Parris Island, all the folks there, I mean, you're talking about 20-plus inches of rain officially forecast. And the scary part is someone could get a lot more than that if they just particularly are the one that the rain band trains over. This could be some astonishing rainfall totals, and localized, this will be some of the worst flooding that some of these areas have probably seen in a long time, if not maybe on record. I mean, it could be, this is going to be catastrophic. The Hurricane Center is using that language, and I am too. Catastrophic flooding in this area. It would be highly advised to try to evacuate to higher ground and just get somewhere a bit safer, because this region between, like, you know, Brunswick and maybe Myrtle Beach, and especially between Savannah and Charleston, is just going to get crushed with days of heavy rainfall. I mean, imagine a thunderstorm in the summer that's like really heavy for like 20 minutes. Like, oh, wow, I can hear it on the roof, and you go outside and it's really coming down. It's that for like potentially days. That's the kind of rain we're talking about here. I mean, when you get 20-something inches of rain, you're getting 1 to 2 inches of rain per hour for like a day or more. I mean, it's going to be a staggering amount of rainfall, and it's definitely going to be the biggest reminder and legacy of Hurricane Debby as it moves through. But European model moves this thing offshore, and you can see the euro does strengthen it quite a bit. The euro drops us back down well into hurricane territory over the Gulf Stream, and the micromanage going into Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday is going to be, okay, does this come up and just hug the coast and go back in, or does this maybe cut further south and then cut further out? You know, if this storm is able to get out over the Gulf Stream, the overall environment will be very favorable for re-intensification, and Debby very well may be able to regain strong tropical storm or hurricane status. So if you were across, you know, especially South Carolina and North Carolina, even if maybe in your North Carolina you're not in the heaviest rain, you could still be, you're going to definitely see tropical storm impacts later this week. You could potentially still see hurricane impacts this week. So definitely a lot more to come in that regard as well. And finally today, I forgot to mention it, but Storm Prediction Center still has a tornado watch out. They will have multiple more of these, and these will spread up the coast. So I think that the Carolinas will see less of them given the dynamics. I think that the northern Florida area is kind of in that hot spot for the most tornadoes. I don't think we've seen a ton yet. I might want to double check myself though on that. Yeah, so far storm reports have been somewhat limited. 6 tornado reports so far, but some of those wind reports could be tornadoes as well. Surveys will go on after the fact, but that's still a possibility today. In these tropical systems, they can start spawning tornadoes quickly, and sometimes you'll see a band get going, and then it'll just start dropping them left and right. So please have ways to get warnings and alerts throughout today across northern Florida, because that's going to be a big deal. Let's go ahead and zoom out and take a look at the rest of the tropics just for a minute at the end of the video here. The Hurricane Center is tracking another wave. We talked about this a couple days ago. Moving through the Antilles today, not much going on with it right now. Pretty convectively anemic, but as it works into the central and western Caribbean, conditions in this area will be pretty favorable for intensification, and we likely will have another named storm at some point later towards the weekend or early next week. And folks along the western Gulf Coast and Louisiana and Texas especially want to keep an eye on this one. I know it kind of looks like it's just going to go straight into Mexico, and it very well might, but also if the steering currents change at all, folks along the Gulf Coast, especially central western Gulf Coast, might have something on their hands going into the next week. And then there is another wave not marked on the Hurricane Center's map that's moving off of Africa. We'll have to watch as well. And I want to leave you guys with this because this is kind of important. This is the Eastern Pacific, and you're like, well, it's the Eastern Pacific. What? I don't care about this. It's a bunch of fish storms. Well, it is, but the Eastern Pacific was pretty much dead all season so far, and then they've had 3 tropical systems, including a hurricane, pop up in the last couple of days, and then they have a 4th one potentially on their hands coming out within the next day or so. I tell you this because generally in the tropics, we have broad upward motion and large-scale waves that move through our upper atmosphere that generally govern how favorable the tropics are. It's Madden-Julian oscillation, it's convectively coupled Kelvin waves, a bunch of big brain stuff that I don't even really fully understand. But we do know that these things move in large cycles. So it is no coincidence that the Eastern Pacific is lighting up right now, and all this forcing is slowly moving towards the Atlantic. So as we work into middle and late August, all of the forcing that kicked all these storms off will likely be more over the Atlantic basin. So as these waves come off Africa, we're going to have more. It's going to be a busy August, and Debby will not be the last headache we have on our hands. So just pointing that out. I know it's down the road. I know it's an outrageous lean ahead, but I do want to keep people informed because this one steals the show right now. But by next week, we may have another storm on our hands, and then we may have more after that because I think any wave coming off Africa this month is going to have a good shot to develop. So that's what I got for you guys this morning. Please stay safe across northern Florida today. We'll have more regional updates throughout the day. I'll be tracking it all afternoon, and then we will just see how it plays out. And folks in South Carolina, Georgia, and even in North Carolina, get ready for a lot of rainfall. It's going to start raining today, and it may not stop raining until this weekend. I mean, it's going to be that serious, and a major flooding event is likely in that region, and a serious flooding event across northern Florida as well. Please try to limit your travel, and please don't drive into flooded roads. It is not worth it. Whatever job you work ain't worth driving through flooded roads for, I promise. That's what I got for you guys this morning. As always, thanks for watching, and have a good one.